Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, KTSP Business 63 on a Saturday. Thank you very much. I'm going to unmute you all now, unless we hear a lot of barking in the background. So today, I wanted to introduce you to an entrepreneur. I wanted to do the same thing that we did in the last show, and just a little background on Mark, who is also known as the youngest Howley. I went to school with his brother who was at college. I went to college with his brother who's now a neurosurgeon in Kentucky. And then just by happenstance, I guess it might be 20 years ago, we were interviewing for a job at a company that was failing. And my boss said, we're going to meet this guy, Andrew Howley. And I said, was his brother? Do you know Danny? He goes, I didn't ask that question. So I go to meet him. Lo and behold, it's Danny's brother. And then Andy introduces me to Mark here, who's an entrepreneur and has come down and spoken a couple of times at our Business 23 classes. And it's been successful. So I asked him at this point, can you spend 15, 20 minutes with us? We can ask him some questions. He'll give us a little bit of a rundown of how he started as an entrepreneur. And I thought it would be worthwhile. So here we go, Mark. We asked the same questions we always did. So,
hello, everybody. I'm Mark.
We got Mark, Andy, Danny.
Whatever,
so
I'm Mark.
Tell us about the first time you went and became an entrepreneur, meaning I think you had a corporate job before.
Yeah, I worked for a pretty I'm in the, sounds pretty mundane, but you can make money in it. I'm in the packaging business. And I was working for a larger Italian firm from Milan. And at 37, I think it was, about 33 or 34, the light went on. There was no advance for me. I'm not, like it or not, I wasn't from Milan. The inside crowd, the decision makers were there, and it's kind of like I just,
Oh, shit. Hold on, Hold on, Mark. Hold on. Where'd you go? Here he is. Okay, let me unmute you.
Okay, cool. There we go.
So
anyway, at about 37, I had gotten to the point where I just, couldn't I couldn't enjoy myself, and I felt like it was almost it was digging into my personal life in a way, mentally, and not physically. So I made the at 37 with 3 kids, I pulled the plug and left. And without employment.
Without employment,
I picked up a job because I had a non-compete. I picked up a job for a year. That's how long my non-compete was. That would at least carry me. I could get the mortgage paid, the car payments, and not. Basically, I wasn't out scraping on the street for food, but I was able to break down to a very fundamental living style. And, not be running out and doing all the crazy things I enjoyed doing. This was when I was in suburban Philadelphia. And that pretty much launched me to where I didn't exactly know, but I knew it would be within my industry. That's where my strength was.
Gotcha. So there you are. The reason you get out of there is because it's a personal thing. I'm never going to get any further in this because it's in Milan. But you were able to, because you were in sales at the time, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I was quite good at it.
Yeah. And so that became okay, we're going to stay into the same business. So that's good. But so when you left, you didn't say, oh my gosh, this is what we're going to do. It was, hey, I've got to get out of here. And you didn't start a side hustle. You took that big leap.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do was I didn't want to go back into another larger corporate setting, because I was aware of all the politics of it for me.
Right.
And I thought, I'm not going to jump in there with a bunch of guys my age who have been there, guys and gals who have been there for maybe 10 years,
right,
and jimmy my way around with them. But I did want to find a smaller business that either was in some kind of a problem or small enough that I could be a shining star.
Yeah. So like the problem we talk about as Andy, his brother, and I were working in financially troubled companies.
Yes.
So you're in Philadelphia at the time, and it takes then the next thing becomes.
Well, I work at home. Well, first off, in order to start with them, they said all certain great things about me and how I'm going to be, moved out to Seattle and become Mr. Important.
Right.
So I finally, after about a year or so, they asked me to move to Seattle. By then, my income was not, I still had not returned to my income at the previous job, but I just went, let's go, let's rip it. And, looking back on it, that's a pretty risky move. For some reason in my head, I didn't feel that way at the time.
Yeah.
I was,
37.
yeah. And I was more excited than I was frightened.
There you go.
So,
Cool. I mean, it's good to, we watched some videos about people as, if I would have known what I know
yeah.
now, I wouldn't have done it.
Well, that's what I was just going to say that, my father said to me, that's a very, very challenging thing to do, Mark. You're moving away from family, moving all the way across the country. Don't take that lightly. And, years later, I say, if I was talking to somebody 37 now, I would say the exact same thing.
Right.
And that would be, you don't realize the difficulty you're going to have. And when you're away from home, you don't know it until you're away from home.
Yeah. So because you have a large family.
I do. And a lot of,
I ran to Portland just to get away from my family. So.
Oh, okay.
But you had everybody in the station wagon, right? Everybody in the station wagon. Let's go. Like,
let's rock and roll,
yeah.
and yeah, just like, let's go.
So here we are. So now you're the head guy in Seattle. Then
Yes.
what happened?
Well, then when I got out here, I was all fired up, and I really was enjoying myself. Unbeknownst to me at the time, the company I went to, which was owned by a group of investors, was in a lot of financial distress. I didn't know to the extent,
Right.
But they were financially in some serious trouble. Then that caused a big stir, and so that's where I started doing my work for them, and I was all pumped up. There was nothing other than just driving like a madman at the time, almost knowing where I wanted to go, but still trying to figure out how it was going to happen.
Knowing where you wanted to go, but you're going to figure it out.
It's going to I know where we're going. I can point it roughly the touchdown point,
right.
But I'm still trying to figure out, we got to do something. Something got to happen,
right?
And at that time, the most disappointing thing to me, and one of the most painful things for me emotionally, and I think that's something I didn't realize when I moved out, was that a couple of the guys who at that time were my bosses
mm-hmm.
became really nasty, very nasty. And they were trying to find scapegoats right, left, and in between. And I got caught in the crosshairs of a scapegoat. And it was a very personal thing, because they didn't say just performance-related things. They sort of, I don't know what they were. I felt as though it was a personal attack.
Right.
And it got very, I don't like it. I don't like it when somebody overtly doesn't like me, and I feel like they're trying to wiggle around behind me and hurt me. That's a new level of hurt.
And then what happened?
Well, another group of investors came in and bought out my investors, or our investors, at which time they sent guys in and wanted to, and by the way, by complete happenstance, that group of investors was a part of Berkshire, and so far away from everybody that I don't even, it was like a crumb on the toenail of Warren Buffett. He
right.
didn't even know about it.
God.
And so they came in and they started interviewing everybody with me, with the upper management group of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the upper management guys were saying, basically like, go in, like almost like like somebody getting interviewed where they're not supposed to say anything wrong.
Right.
And we went on and talked for about an hour or so, more than that, probably 3 or 4 hours, about the position of the company, this, that, and the other thing. And at the conclusion of that, they called me at my home and said, we want to understand something, Mark. You seem to understand the market better than anybody else in that room. You seem to have a zeroed in knowledge of where the market is, which I would not be able to say that unless I had spent that time with the other company long enough to get a good beat on it.
Yep. So now all of a sudden, here's some assets that you didn't know you had that now you have.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden I go from the bad jerk to everybody thinks I'm a great guy, and now I don't trust anybody. I really don't. I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof. And when they called me on that Saturday at home, I distinctly remember saying, and this is just me and my, I'm now a paranoid guy. I'm saying,
Right.
is anybody taping this phone call?
Exactly. Yeah.
And they say no. And I go, okay, I'm going to repeat that one more time, because if there is anybody taping it, the answer to this question could cost me my job.
Yeah.
And I have children and I can't risk that. And they said, no, answer candidly. And I said, there are a noose around my neck. That's the fact. They completely restrict me. I don't feel like I can do what the company should do. I don't think it's run well. And I think I could help out. To which they said, okay, we're going to think about that. And they came back and said, you're right. We're going to, then they summarily got rid of these two people. One of them had an option on some shares, but we didn't. Shares were debt. And at that time, they gave me, what they did with me is they said, in order to keep you around, we can't give you a lot more money right now, but we're going to allow you to have 25% of the equity, but you have to select 3 other people that will be engaged in the business, and we want all of them to be a part of it with equity. And one of them was a financial guy that had been left behind from the rotten team. And they said, and we want this fellow Barry to be very involved in it. We trust him as a financial guy, which I did not like this guy. So I had to cobble together and make him happy and 2 other guys happy. And the financial guy, knowing that he had a leg up, squeezed me down for, I think it was about 9%. So I ended up with 9% when 10% when all the day was done. That was just to placate everybody, and I had to act like he and I were chummy in order to get everybody, in order to get their vote of confidence and get to exercise the opportunity to have a little piece of this thing.
Gotcha. So here you are, all of a sudden going from heel to hero. Well, not hero yet, but now you're in charge at this point?
Well, they have, because they're an investment group, they want to have a strong financial guy there to know that things aren't going wrong.
The numbers.
Yeah. So the guy who I didn't like was the numbers guy.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he had a little bit of a, he could reign over me a little because he was the financial guy.
Yeah. Was cash flow important?
Very important. The way that they asked me to create a business plan that would get them out of the mess. Right. And at that time, the way I did it, and it was just, I looked at it like a car payment, an expensive car. But nonetheless, I thought, can we spin off enough money with cash flow and the like to service that debt for them and not be putting myself into this dangerous hockey stick sort of growth, which they would prefer to see. Right. My attitude was, I need to service the debt and get you into a position that you can get out of here and get at least your money back, and hopefully you make a little bit.
Yeah, and that debt, we talk about fixed costs. So those are the fixed costs that you have to cover.
Yes, and one was, we can get into this a little more, one was bank money, which was cheap. But what they had was they had a whole bunch, they owned whatever, they had 75% of it, which was equity. So their money was, at the moment, didn't have to pay on it. But in order to get them out, eventually they're going to want that money, period, one way or another. Right. And go ahead.
Now, so the company, is this the company that Pacific Bag?
Yes. Okay. That was Pacific Bag.
Let me, I'm going to pull it up right now here. I'm going to share screen. And I'm going to pull up Pacific Bag so you can give an idea. People will hear you, but they won't see you.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull up Pacific Bag right over here. Looks like it has a new name now, right?
Yes, and we'll get around to that. I sold the business 18 months ago.
Oh, 18 months ago. Oh, God. Yeah. Wow. I thought the last time we talked that you were out of it.
No. I was partially out. Now,
gotcha.
Somebody came in and made a good offer, and I jumped on it. So
And so your claim to fame was this, as you called it last time I saw it, was this belly button here.
yes, and if you look off to the other side, there's a bunch of them kind of piled up on the
Okay,
ground
these
there.
valves here, right?
I don't know. Probably there's some people in there who drink coffee, and if you do, you see a bag, and if you push in on the bag, you smell the coffee. And many people think it's designed for that reason. That's not the case. Do you want me to explain what it's for?
Sure, why not? Sure, why
Okay.
not?
When you roast a coffee, if you put it in just a normal, like a Starbucks bag, and allow it to degas, coffee lets off carbon dioxide. And it lets off carbon dioxide. And what happens is that has to escape the bag. If it doesn't escape the bag will blow up like a balloon, literally almost like a football, tight, blown up football. If you push a little hole in it and close it back down and come back the next day, it blows up again. So there's a significant amount of this carbon dioxide coming off. Well, something has to open it, but then close before oxygen comes in. Oxygen stales coffee. It's one of the biggest, the enemy of coffee is oxygen.
Right. Gotcha.
And so you have to have a way to do that. I did not create that. Again, go back to my history. That company was the original one-way valve producer.
Mm.
So when I came out to this one, that valve there is supposed to be one way, but it wasn't one way. It just looked good. And it looked like a mimic. So we had to make that work properly so that we could
one-way
play.
degassing valve. Yeah.
And if we wanted to play in the big boys game, we had to have that working meticulously.
Gotcha.
Quality control, the whole thing, which we were able to accomplish, but it took some time.
So now we see custom packaging, valves, degassing valves, custom printing. So did the business start out when you were there? Can you give us some numbers in terms of when you got there, it was X amount of revenue, and then it went to that amount of revenue by the time, I don't know if you're under a non-disclosure or something like that.
No. I mean, I can give you enough light information.
Yeah.
We were, when I got my hands on it, it was in the neighborhood of about maybe 13 or 14 million. So this was not a huge company.
Right.
There's about 40 employees at that time, of which most of them were sales and customer service or warehouse management, and then a handful of people that were actually making the valve. But our big business was the bags. So that was where our most money came through. So you had to be managing, the biggest part of it was managing the custom printed bags and what we call stock bags, like the ones that are scanning in front of you, unprinted, that you would buy and put a label on it or do something to that effect. So that was the big business. And I feel like I wandered off stream.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm with you on that because I'm leading you along these lines. So this is like the old 80-20 rule, in that I need to have the valves in order to sell the bags.
Absolutely.
I make more money on the bags than I make on the valves.
Well, my margin on the valves is astronomical.
Okay.
70% margin.
Right.
Because we just tucked our price up under the Italians, but not so much so that we were, I guess for lack of a word, bastardizing our price and our margin. Right. So we sat there, but like margins were like 70% on that.
Gotcha.
But you had a limited market because there's only so much coffee. You can't have it. Once you have it all, you have it all.
Gotcha.
So, and there were other competitors. So even though you have a patent, there was a couple other patents that were in the States that had different designs.
Right.
So we weren't just sitting there, the only person around.
So what we're talking about is that, and I'm leading you through what we had talked about last week about cash flow forecasting, break-even analysis and those things. You already touched on the break-even. When you got in there, it says, look, I just have to break even now so we can figure out what we're going to do now. And the way you figured that out was a cash flow forecast. What's coming in, what's going out. And of course, the hardest thing to forecast is sales. So you're very conservative with that. And then you look at, are there some costs here that I can, just like when you left when you were 37 years old, you pared it down to the minimum so that you could make that and buy yourself some time in terms of doing the next one. Now,
Yes.
this entrepreneurship, I'm talking to the class, this is more about dealing with financially troubled companies, but it's the same concept. And the concept
Yeah.
of understanding where your cash is, understanding where your margins are. I told the class I had bought a ravioli, the worst decision I made. Went against everything that I said I should not do. Bought a ravioli company, a frozen ravioli company, and we started doing the margin analysis, and we found out the one we made the least amount of money on was the one we sold the most of.
Well, that's a very common thing, and a
Right.
lot of people will say, oh, have you ever done a full analysis of our custom printing? Our custom printing is a
Right.
lot of volume, but a lower margin.
Right.
The stock bags that you inventory and ship out as little as one case, you make a lot of money there.
There you
Again,
go.
margin wise. So it kind of goes valves, stock bag, custom printing. But custom printing was the driver. But if you were to look at it, you'd say, well, why don't you stop doing the custom printing? Well, if you stop doing the custom printing, you can't put your little belly button in the bag. A lot of people who come to custom printing start out with a stock bag and they roll into custom printing.
Yep.
So you're kind of, one demands the other.
Right.
Or you can't get by. So it's kind of a mixed product that clearly, where
it all sounds great. Let's do the analysis. Oh, let's get rid of this product. Whoa. If I can't do this, then I won't get that, and I get that, and that works up to those margins.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a struggle with the financial people from the
sure, of course, yeah,
because they'd come in and say, well, why don't you just get rid of
custom,
or they'd say, or get rid of, like in your stock bag inventory, get rid of blue because blue doesn't move as well. And you'd say, yeah, but I have 2 or 3 customers in blue that are growing quite well. And any one of them may pop into custom, which in turn may not be the money you want, but you would like quadruple the volume.
Right.
So, you're saying, well, if you pulled one, the others would topple. And so you have to look at it as a blended margin. You can't, if you get into just every little one on the shelf, you're going to say, throw that. Well,
exactly. Now you're down to just, so people come to the taco truck for the tacos, but you can't throw out the burritos because some of the people that come for the burritos also get the tacos. So it's just there's a financial analysis, which everyone goes through, and the bean counters, as we know, but then there's the judgment call. And that's where the judgment comes in for understanding that. So just one, before I open it up to questions here, let's see. What advice do you have for me as a student of entrepreneurship?
Well, I think in my mind, the thing that caught me the most off guard was the emotional disturbance and the difficulty of being able to keep your eye on the ball with that disturbance. So what I'd say is, number one, that disturbance is a lot better if you have the right pegs, and that is the building blocks. You have somebody who can market well for you. You have somebody that you trust in financial. You have somebody in quality control, because all those blend together to make a good thing. For us, the biggest drain on cash flow, would be we had to carry about $3 million in these stock bags.
You're right.
So they're sitting out in the warehouse. They're there. You paid for them, and if they don't sell, you still paid for them.
Right.
You own them. So that, and also in the custom printing side of it, everybody wants to buy 100 of. They swear, I'm going to buy 1 million. How about you run 1 million custom bags that say Harry's Great Coffee or Susie's Great Specialty Pet Food, and they go, oh, but by the way, I only need 10,000 right now. And you're like, well, I made 100. And so you're very cautious there, because the fact of the matter is, if they go under, you're stuck.
Those bags are useless.
They're useless. They're printed. They're no good. So
useless.
You got to be very careful on your terms there.
Yeah, terms of that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It's probably the last class. We'll go through those types of the realities of doing business and all. Let me open up everybody here to an unmute. I'm going to unmute you all. You can ask Mark any questions you have, or you can send it to me in a chat. If the unmute goes crazy, I'll go back to a chat.
What's this my Mexicanism?
Okay, I'm going to mute all. I'm going to mute all and ask me, type type your question for Mark here. So if anybody has any questions for Mark, you see it in the chat there. Somebody give me a question for Mark. It's early on a Saturday. Where's Hallie? I'm going to unmute you.
This one fellow had a question.
Oh, here it comes in. Ah, nice. Great question. So Gabe said, what was the process of selling the business like?
Well, first off, I had refinanced a couple times, so they were kind of scary because you're borrowing money at different debt, so different cost of your money.
Right.
You get money from a bank and it's low percent. You go out and get equity people or venture, your interest rates go flying up. So those two turns to get myself where I fully controlled it, I owned close to 80% of it. Those two turns were very complex. I won't get into that unless we have further questions. Ultimately, the sale of it, lucky for me, I was not looking to sell it. It had been very successful.
So how many? So before you sold it, what's the revenue now? Was it 13? Now it's
40 million.
There you go. It's a good number.
Yeah. So, but that was a steady growth.
Yeah.
If you look over a 10 or 15 year period, that is not like, we were not in a technology sector.
Right.
Ours was watch everything closely and you can make money and
Yeah.
you can make a very good living, like extremely good.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I just was saying, well, I'm making really good money. I'm hanging out. I have now a bunch of people that are quite good whom I trust.
Mhm.
So my responsibility was lessened. And I was like, well, this is cool. I'll run along. At which time, a larger company that is in the plastic bottle business and they're the largest distributor of wine glass bottles in the country, they all of a sudden came to me and said, we desperately want to get into flexible packaging, not what they call rigid or semi-rigid. We were flexible. The bag crushes when you hold it. It's pretty simple. And we think you would be a great strike point for us, the way you market it, the way you put it together. And we want to pay you this much, which between you and I would say was a very attractive verging on like holy poop. You put that on the bow, So I played rather coy at the time. But also what I had figured out was in order for me to stick around and make that money over a year to year to year basis would have taken me probably 10 years.
Gotcha.
So the question was, do you want the money now or later? Right. And in business, especially a smaller business, later is not always a guarantee.
Right.
Things change in a market, and in a dime, you can find yourself behind the eight ball. Pardon me, a matter of a second, you can find yourself in the back of it.
Cool. And so at that point, you played coy for a little bit. Did you get a little bit more money after that, or?
No, what happened was they gave me a very attractive price. And
Nice.
I just finally kept saying to the fellow, look, I've been through this before. I know what you're going to do. You're going to give me an attractive price. And then when they go into what they call due diligence, is where they really come in. They look at your inventory. They look at your receivables. They look at your cash flow. They look at all your selling processes. They look how you do pricing. I mean, they go in and out of every cave you can imagine. And at that point, they have a right to adjust their valuation. And I knew I had all that clean because I had done that previously to refinance the business.
That's right.
So I just said, guys, I know you've heard this from everybody, but we're clean. And all I will say is, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is if you start playing that game, I will walk away. I just don't need the heartache. I don't want that. I'm not going to engage myself in that. And the chairman of the board of this company came out and said, I just won't believe it. And then one day they go, oh, we just happened to be in Seattle with Joe, who's the big boss. We have a cup of coffee. And I said, sure, I'll have a cup of coffee. And we had a cup of coffee. And I said roughly that to him. And he just turned to me and said, Mark, it's your choice to believe me, but I'm not going to do that. I want it. That's the price. And they lived to their commitment, not without doing the due diligence, which
Right.
took 6 to 8 months of just endless questions. Just,
Cool.
and you're answering to a big company. So I swear it seems like everybody you send a report loses it or doesn't read it. So you're sending the same report like 10 times. It's driving you
At some
crazy.
point you go, well, at least you know the CEO, the chairman at this point going, dude, man, I'm done. This is like trying to refi any type of a loan. The documents just keep going. I stop this. And every time you say, I'm done, they say, okay.
Yeah. Now, but mind you, by that time, the chairman of the board is pretty much out of the picture.
Right.
So I'm not going to call on him like anything, guys, and any gal or guy out there.
Right.
You have to respect the person you're talking to. Whether they're the hot shot or not, you're not doing any good not to give that person in front of you due respect.
Right.
And if you're going to go around his back and call the big boss, it better be for a damn good reason.
Gotcha. We have another question here. So, Mark, do you have a process or strategy for making difficult business decisions?
Well, yes.
Good
The ones
answer.
that are, I wouldn't say yes, pardon me. I have sort of a loose way that I come to it, but it's roughly the same every time. And that is, you look at it, you think about it. Then what I always did was I had a lot of trust, and I had a new financial guy. I had a new guy running the inventory. I had a new guy looking at all our risks at hand. I talked to the sales head of the sales group, whom I trusted. I had by then I felt very comfortable with his forecasting. And then you eventually look at it, and somebody has to pull the plug. And very rarely is it this black and white thing. Businesses, everybody wonders, well, it's just do this, do that. No, the vast majority of business decisions are made in shades of gray. You think you got it all figured out, but there's still a little bit of gray flickering around in there. And that's that you're wrong. And you don't know you're wrong until you do it. So we had a handful of product launches that were blunders. Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of money in it, but they were just complete. I had it all figured out. I was a genius. Put it on the market, and nobody buys it. Nobody.
Nobody buys
wants it.
But the cool thing is, but you didn't invest in $5 million worth of equipment for that.
No. I would keep my investment low. I would somehow use equipment. It would only be workable if we didn't have to make huge capital investments to change something over that cost a lot of money.
Right.
So that limited you a little in what you could do.
Sure.
But I'm watching my cash. You're watching your cash. So you don't want to.
Cash.
Everybody says, oh, just buy it and then amortize it. You're like, yeah, but pardon me. I had to get the money out of my checking account. That's gone. Now we can play really great. We play all financial games, but that money left the checking account.
Yep.
Or I borrowed it, and you're going to have to pay.
Worse.
Yeah. Now you're one way or another. You're not escaping anything, no matter what the financial. Everybody wants to talk about it. No, you're paying one way or another.
All right, we're gonna go. Anyone have one more question? Anybody typing in? Cool. I'm going to ask the last question. So in terms of your decisions that you make, not on a daily basis, but during the time when you're involved in that, new product launches and those things, what do you think the percentage is of the ones that you said worked out great?
I'd be a lot richer if I had more of them right.
Right.
But, a lot of them failed. A lot of them. And, probably, let's just say rough number, 10 of them were launched. If I'm lucky, 3 of them went, but surely one and hopefully 2 covered all the crap that happened with the other 8.
Right.
And because if you hit a bell ringer, you're like, wow. And then you can go back and tell everybody how smart you are, and you can act like you're a great strategist, but you don't tell them about the 8 that flopped.
Right.
But there's a lot of that. So that's another reason to be careful when you launch something. You may throw a lot of money at something, and remember, the likelihood of it being successful is very low.
So limit amount, do some prototypes, fail
Yep.
faster, and keep that number down. And don't worry about making it perfect. Get it out there and let the customer determine it. Cool.
And learn this when you're working with people or you're somebody.
Mhm.
Be very open with you own along with, you can always blame it on somebody else.
Mhm.
Oh, the sales guy didn't forecast right. No, and you represent the organization in front of other people, and even your own managers say, look, we just fell right on our face, and I'm in it with you guys and gals.
Yep.
I'm not trying to dodge the bullet. If in fact, if you are, fine, I'll take the bullet.
Take it, yeah. Because it's
know?
going to happen.
We screwed up.
Yeah, we
Done.
screwed up. Let's move on. I mean,
Yeah.
I think people really have, particularly in the environment that I'm working in right now, which is public, like working for the government. People have a real aversion to say, you know what, we made a mistake, and let's do this, because they seem to, just because of the way they finance things or budgetary things, which are 5 years out, you don't want to say when it starts up, going, oh, we made a mistake, and so then becomes this game about how we can make it look right. But in the real world or the entrepreneurship world, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do it wrong, and you just got to keep fixing it and keep moving on.
And
Mark?
nothing is more. In fact, I would say I promoted more people who admitted they did something wrong. If somebody walks in your office, even if it's a simple thing,
Right.
I got hot with a customer. I made a mistake. I got ahead of myself.
Yep.
Now you can respect the person. Or I completely messed up getting that shipment in. I missed my forecast. I didn't buy properly. I'm sorry, Mark. I made a mess of it. And you go, okay, thank you.
And then that's how you're going to fix it.
And if they do it 10 times in a row, well, then you say, okay, thank you. How about you take a very long vacation? Like a very long one.
All right, Mark, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Got some last questions here, of course. I will have this on a podcast as well as a video, so you can use that to give it to your children and your children's
children.
All right, you're the best. Thanks so much. You're happy to stay along and play with us, but I'm going to start going back to the class.
Okay, if anybody cares to, look, I don't want to come in on anybody, but if there's these little chat rooms off to the side, I'm happy to step into one of them or maybe two. I don't know when that takes place. If not, no offense taken, none whatsoever. I'll go back to my Saturday morning. So
no worries. We'll figure it out from there.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Thank you all. Thank you very much for playing along with me on this. So we're doing a screen share right now. And let's figure out where we are. There's Mark's company now purchased. We're going to go through here. What do I want to do next? Here we are. All right, let's start where we normally start, which is the syllabus. And here we are right now. We're doing the last aspects of hustling. We're going to talk self-promotion and show me the money, or we're going to talk about unconventional. We're going to start with that unconventional funding. So let's see. I want to let you know that I'm way behind on the reviews of all the assignments. I'll make sure I complete that by Sunday. I've updated the YouTube and podcasts so that you can review those on my my channel, my podcast, as well as the YouTube channel. Cool. All right, let's go through with the final assignment. I think there's some questions about that, which I understand, and I think I have some. So there's the final assignment. So it's going to be interviews, proof of effort, 6-month cash flow, which we'll work on later today, as well as I'll set aside time on next Saturday, which is our last class, to work through the cash flow forecast and the interviews and the proof of effort. But if we go into the modules here, I want to show you for the samples of the final project, because one of the questions I get often is, what's proof of effort? And what are you looking for? Well, what I'm looking for that next step. Many of you have come to this class with an idea of a project or idea of a business, and you want to take it to the next level. Or otherwise, people have come here with a business and want to take that in a different direction. But the key thing that I'm looking for is taking that next step. I want this assignment to be a little bit of a motivator, or to push you to that next level. So let's look at John Hemp's here. I'm going to pull him up. You can download it. Here's his PDF, and I'll pull it up. And here's what John did. John was talking about, and this is an excellent example of a proof of effort. So he put together his Capsule business plan, which is, it's his business plan about one pager, who will buy it. See that? Just a one pager there about he was going to create capsules that had a little bit of psychedelic medicine. So there are some studies that show that psychedelic medicine in small dosages make people more focused, etc. And that was his particular business. So he answered all those questions. How would you get paid? Who would buy it? How would you promote it? And those things. And then here's his promotional plan. And then here's his 6-month cash flow. So in this particular case, when we look at the 6-month cash flow here, he's going to need $152,000 for this project. It doesn't matter to me in terms of how much you need. It has I just want you to do the forecast so you understand. And you can see out of this 152, the majority of it was the initial startup cost of 100,000. There's his 6-month cash flow. And here's his proof of effort. He created a website. You want a microdose? Where will it take you? And then he had some resources here that he used to support some of his assumptions. So that's one of the ways to look at it. Let me show you what Nawal did. Excuse me. Here's what Nawal did. And so she was making aroma products for Wealth and Beauty. And she was importing these. Here's her cash flow. Cash flow is a good example. While this matches here, there are some, it's not perfect here, but I understand what she was trying to do. There's her cash flow. Here's a promotional plan. Here's her proof of effort. Here she is cooking her aromas in her kitchen. Here's her labels she did, et cetera, et cetera. And that's great. So that get her to the next level. And in fact, Nawal has been selling this to local farmers markets. So she had taken that next step of putting together this project, and also the proof of effort was that she was making it, promoting it, and then she actually did it in the farmers markets. So that's all I'm looking for in this particular, for that assignment. I'm going to go back to the intellectual property. So for example, let's look at Nawal's with her majestic aromas. So I'm going to ask her, and what I'm asking you is, did she need patents? Did she need copyrights? Did she need trademarks? Did she have trade secrets? What about her competition? And any other intellectual property observations? So if Mark's still on the line here, I mean, he's going to agree with me on this. As when we talk about this, I want you to know about these things, but I don't want you to believe that because you have a patent or because you have a trademark, that people will not rip your stuff off. It happens all the time. And now becomes the question of, do you have enough money to sue these people? In my view is, I get a trademark, I get all these things. Patents take a long time, but there are other industrial patents which don't take that much, like patent pending. I would do that just to deter people. But on the other hand, I wouldn't worry about it. I won't lose any sleep over these things. People get hung up on it, and I believe they get hung up on it only because they're scared to actually put it out to the public. Engineers do that. Engineers do that quite a bit. So the last one is going to be these interviews. And let me go back to modules here to make sure I've got this all set up for you for your interviews. Final project templates. Here's my interview toolkit. Click on that. Download it again. And of course, it's sideways on this, but this will give you an idea of what I'm looking for in terms of your customer interviews. We did this a little bit in our remote class, but I want you to find 3 people that you're going to interview, fill in this information, and here's some guidelines in terms of how to get this information from an interview and some tips for interviewing. And in this way, where you're going to show that you can figure out customer empathy. And hopefully by understanding this, the new product that you're releasing is going to be more customer focused than it is in the case, as Mark pointed out. We thought it was great. It was going to put it to the market. Customers didn't like it. And that's perfect. They made a prototype. They thought it was going to be a good idea based on these interviews. Interviews are great, but when people buy it, that's the key. People can say all they want. It's not what they say, it's what they do. So if they don't buy any of this stuff, then you know it doesn't work. But you start with what they say that they would do. That's why the prototype becomes important, and that's why keeping your costs down becomes important as well. Cool. All right, let's roll into unconventional funding. I got to sign in again. Gonna verify it's me. Cool. I'm going to drop out of the stop sharing here so I can see if you have any questions in that. Nope. Looks like there's no questions. I'm going to go back to share screen share. Yippity-doo-dah, yippity-yay. Remember, of course, everything's being recorded, and I put that up there in terms of chat. So we're going to talk about unconventional fundraising. And here's what I would say is the most aspiring business owners make two common mistakes. Hold on, let me go back here. Hey, Mark, can you mute? Cool. So many aspiring business owners make two mistakes. Two mistakes that we see all the time. Thinking too much about how to fund their project and thinking too little about where the business income will come from. Everybody gets hung up on. So that gentleman who did the capsule, he's hung up on how am I going to get $150,000? When in actuality, he should be figuring out where his business income is going to come through, and could he at some level decrease those costs in order to get out a product that he can test. So it's a focus on income and cash flow. Mark talked about it. And here's what's going to happen. You need to spend only on things that will build your brand and boost your sales. Focus on profit. And borrowing money or investing a lot of money to start a business is completely optional. And that's why we use the $100 startup. I don't expect you to spend any money, but I can get you to the point where you can start to promote your business and sell your products or services with the least amount of money possible. I don't expect you to spend any money whatsoever. But that's why I chose the book of the $100 startup. So what we're going to look at, remember our cash flow, you're going to look at, Mark talked about it as well, which items provide the most cash receipts, meaning which items of all of his items that he could sell, which one brings in the most. And we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule, but the 80-20 rule is that 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your products. And as Mark pointed out, that doesn't mean I can get rid of the other 80% of the products, because I need them to entice people or to be available for my customers when they need additional products that does the blended, as Mark talked about, the blended margins. I'm not made for there we go, for TV. And then which light items provide the most cash disbursements? Typically, it's going to be two things. And a company is Mark's size, 13 million, 5 million, or even in your business, it's going to be payroll and rent. Typically, those are the two biggest line items. To the extent that you can decrease those, it gives you a better opportunity to make a positive cash flow. So when it comes to rent, do it out of your garage. When it comes to payroll, you, your husband, your partner, or whatever, everybody's jumping in. So they're all helping out at that point until you can get an idea, is this going to be a viable business if I can go out and hire other people? Because it's not only how much money they make, but it's also the taxes and what they call burden of each individual that you bring on board. That's going to be your biggest number. And when I did cash flow forecasting for a company, by the end of the month, it looked like, hey, we're great. But in the middle of the month, because payroll was due, they took a dip underneath the amount of cash that they had available. So that's why I ask you to do a 6-month cash flow. When we did it in businesses, we would do a 13-week cash flow. So we knew it by the week because cash was so much money. And again, the point of the cash flow, how much money do you need and when do you need it? So there's nothing wrong with having a hobby, but don't call it the business. You have to make money at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And Naomi is one of the characters or entrepreneurs that's mentioned in the books. So here's a great range. This came exactly from the book. This is, I believe, is 1,500 of the survey respondents. 36, no, it can't be 1,500. 36, 22, 12, 16. There's those numbers down there in terms of how many people that he did for the survey. And 36, or almost more than 30%, used less than $100 or less. And those side hustle announcements that I sent out about the bullfrog, about the guy who did the Excel spreadsheets and all that, they all started with less than $300. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to start the side hustle going. Last one here. Okay. Now, we talk about unconventional financing. I'm going to show you this Kickstarter video. I'm going to give you some of the rules about Kickstarter, and then I'm going to put you into groups to figure out how you would put together a Kickstarter campaign for one of your group's business. That's always the hardest part, is to determine whose it is. I'm reluctant in terms of saying whose business is going to be, but I'll drop into each one of the rooms, and then I'll make the determination if you haven't gotten started on that. We all set?
This week on Indie News, I can't believe my Kickstarter project reached its goal in only 8 hours. I'll take you through the process of setting up a project and compare Kickstarter versus Indiegogo. Why Russell hung out with Kevin Spacey and Willem Dafoe, and how you can use Moby's music in your film. Hey, Indie Mogulers, Griffin here. It's been a really exciting week for me. I launched my first Kickstarter campaign, and it raised $5,000, 100% of the goal, in just 8 hours. So thank you so much to all of you who have supported me. By now, it's raised almost $15,000 from over 800 backers. So today I want to talk about why I think it's been so successful. And Rat Productions wants me to explain Kickstarter in more detail than most of us know. So now that I've been through the process, I'll take you through it step by step. First, what is Kickstarter? It's a platform for raising money for a project. It's not donations because every backer gets something in return. For my Sriracha documentary, I could have paid for the production myself, gone into debt, and hoped that I could recoup the money later by selling the film. But if I know there's already an audience for the film, Kickstarter lets me ask for their support up front, which is a much better situation. But realize that this is not a magic money button. Only 44% of Kickstarter projects successfully reach their goal. And Kickstarter is all or nothing. You either reach your goal or you get $0. You can't just start a Kickstarter project and expect that strangers will start throwing money your way. So Seal Merchant wants to know how to get the word out. I believe that my campaign was funded so quickly because I spent a lot of time building an audience. For months, I've been talking about this movie on Indie Mogul, and I've been encouraging people to go like the Facebook page, which had 1,700 fans before I launched on Kickstarter. So your first question shouldn't be, can I raise $5,000 for a film? It should be, can I find an audience first? Backers of Kickstarter projects can be all over the world, but to start a project, you must be in the US or UK and be at least 18 years old. And your project must meet several guidelines, including it has to be a project. You can't ask for money just to buy a camera. Maybe your project needs a camera, but it better also result in a film. You'll add a project image, which shows up here, and a title, which also becomes your URL. Mine is weird because punctuation is deleted, so it's Sriracha. Your project can last up to 60 days, but Kickstarter recommends under 30 because that sense of urgency helps raise money. You won't get the money until 2 weeks after the project ends. That's why they're called pledges, because they're not debited until the end. Remember, Kickstarter is all or nothing. So if you ask for $5,000 and you raise $4,999, you don't get anything. So ask for enough that you can start your film, but not too much. And to answer Master Chief Two Man's question, yes, you can always raise more than your stated goal. At At the end of the project, Kickstarter will collect a 5% fee, and Amazon Payments will collect around 3.5%. That means that if I raise $20,000, I actually get $18,300. So what is Kickstarter doing for me that they deserve this fee? A lot, actually. They're providing a good platform, and because so many people are familiar with the site, I get a lot of referral traffic from their Discover page and their homepage. In my project dashboard, I can see where pledges come from, and a solid 31% of the money raised comes from these referrals. And I'm only paying 5% for that, so that is a great deal. But not all of that money will go to the film. And part of the deal here, one of the reasons that people are giving me money is because I have all these rewards, which cost time and money to fulfill. A $20 movie poster, for example, costs $10 to be printed and shipped. Ozaniffy asked where I'll be getting Blu-rays from, and it looks like analog-free media can have cases printed, discs duplicated, and shipped directly to customers for around $12.50 a piece. So in the end, reward fulfillment will take another 25% off the top. Kickstarter says that simply uploading a video about your project increases your odds of success. In my video, I tried to get people excited for the project, tease a little footage, and explain clearly why I'm asking for money and what value backers will get in return. You also want to explain this nicely in the project description. Luckily, Kickstarter shares helpful tips throughout the process. Connecting your Kickstarter account to Amazon Payments can take up to 7 days, so go ahead and do that now, even if you don't have a project yet. Once you submit a project, you may have to wait 2 or 3 business days for approval. Kickstarter reviews each project to make sure you're not running a contest or selling alcohol or selling someone else's creative work. So I submitted mine last Monday morning, and they actually approved it Tuesday morning. After it's approved, you can launch at any time. And after you launch, you can still edit the project, including updating the video. But you can't change your goal or end date. You can always add more rewards, but you can't change the rewards you've already promised. Now that I'm running a project, I can post updates, which are emailed out to all backers to keep people interested in the project. And I can view a dashboard where I see that most of the money comes directly from Facebook. A lot of it comes from YouTube, and $1,600 came from one good news story on BusinessInsider.com. So now I know I need more press attention. All of my backers for just $5 get to screen the film, but this was concerning to Mark Johnson, who knows that I'm trying to get into film festivals and is wondering, will that screw up my chances? I looked into it, and Sundance and South by both do like to be where films premiere, but they're talking about feature films. Short films, they don't seem to care if it premieres beforehand. And even still, this is a private screening for my backers, not a public premiere, so it really shouldn't matter either way. Latchlin Wykes also wanted me to talk about Indiegogo, another crowdfunding option. And Scott Link recommended I chat with John Trigonis, who works there. So I did, and here's what I found out. Here's how Indiegogo differs from Kickstarter. Generally, it's less limiting. There's no approval process, and it's global. So no matter where you live, no matter what you're raising money for, it's allowed. Plus, they accept PayPal, and you can do a flexible funding campaign, meaning even if you don't reach your goal, you do get to keep the money you earn. Indiegogo charges a lower fee than Kickstarter, but only when you reach your goal. If you fall short, you pay 9%. I like both sites, but I backed more projects on Kickstarter, so it just seemed like the right place for me to be. And if you don't want to pay the fee to Kickstarter or Indiegogo, there's also Self-Start, an open source platform where you can launch your own independent crowdfunding site. So that's a lot of information about crowdfunding. If you have any other questions about Kickstarter or any of this that you think I might be able to help you with, let me know in the comments. If you're a fan of Moby, the music artist, you'll be excited to learn that his music could be in your next film. He just launched MobyGratis.com, where 150 of his tracks, including music from his last 2 albums, is available for any non-commercial project. So if you're producing a student film or a non-profit video, maybe your reel, as long as you're not making any money, Moby is down to collaborate.
Cool. Okay, still need screen share. There he goes. All right. So now here's the drill. Is that Kickstarter helps artists, musicians, filmmakers, designers, other creators find resources. Now, it's for creative projects, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be a product. So I looked up some of the new rules because you can see that that video was from 2013. Here are some of the new rules. So one of the key things is here, it can be for gadgets. And one of the gadgets that I got Kickstarter was this little rascal by Pat Flynn, which allows you to put a camera, hold the camera here, and then go around and do your video, and then automatically put that camera onto a table with this tripod. And he gave me, and because I gave X amount of dollars, I was able to get some free, let's see, I've got a picture of the drawings of other prototypes, and then I also got this for a discount. So it was very interesting in terms of how it's changed a little bit from a Kickstarter aspect, is that you can have a product on it. The key thing on the product here is that you've got to have some prototypes. You have to show those things. And I will give you, we won't do it now, but I'll give you a link to the one that Pat Flynn did for this product so you can see what would be necessary in a Kickstarter campaign to have a product. So I'm going to get out of the share, stop the share screen right now.
Hey,
Mark?
Tom.
Yes, sir.
Tom, I
Yes,
gotta
sir.
run along. I just got a call for something and I gotta go.
All right. You're the best. See you later, man.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Ciao. So here's what we're going to do. Let's do in some breakout rooms here. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms and I'll put it into the chat. I'm going to talk to everyone here. And so now is determine a project within your group. And then identify or create rewards for different levels to promote. So in this particular case, we're going to have to find out within your room, take one project. Come on, different levels. Take one project, get an idea of how much money your cash flow would give you that idea. So let's do it at this point. Let's say the cash flow comes out for this particular project is you need $5,000. So pick someone's project, figure out together what kind of rewards you would have for that at the different levels. Feel free to Google Kickstarter, or if anybody has already done a Kickstarter campaign, so you can see the type of rewards that people have been offering. All right, so I'm going to create 3 rooms. Off you go. I'll be bopping in and out of the rooms. Cool. Let me go into 2. All right, I'm in. Does the assignment or the description of the assignment make sense?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll bop in. I'll get out of here and get into another group. Here we go.
Like a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah. So Jessica, guys, I'm in. Does the exercise make sense?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, she's trying to be caught up.
Where are the questions, though?
What do you mean? What are the questions?
Not the questions. You said you were going to write something in the chat.
I did put it in the chat. So
I can
anyway,
see
here's the drill. I put it.
Yeah.
I got to figure out that when the chat. I think when I go to breakout rooms, the chat doesn't carry.
Yeah.
So I got to figure that out. So anyway, so here it is. It's the between the 3 of you, figure out which project. Maybe Jessica knows that she needs $8,000 or whatever for her project.
Yeah.
So use that as an example, and then figure out or come up with rewards at different dollar levels for someone who would be involved in her Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
And feel free to go online to take a look at other Kickstarter campaigns to get some ideas of what those would be. We saw from the video, he did credits for his movie. He did recipe books. And the more expensive the reward was, the more money that you had to pledge.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Going to the next one. Let's
All right.
up in there. I just got there. I got here. I'll go there. Toma, you're all alone.
Yes, I'm by myself.
You're all alone. Everybody else gone to the restrooms or something like that. So this is something that you can do as well, just for yourself.
Okay.
Feel free to Google some Kickstarter ideas. But even from the video, we said if you wanted to do a video, people got credits, they got a signed picture, any of those things that of course would cost less than the amount of money they pledged. So if you pledge $25, I give you a credit. Doesn't cost me any money, but people find that of value. So, and the way you may want to do this Kickstarter is that you've already done your cash flow and I need $4,000. So let me raise $5,000 because again, remember the net you're going to get back, you got to pay all these fees. How much money would I raise? And then what rewards might I potentially give them to entice them to pledge? Make sense?
I kind of.
All right, let's talk. It's me and you.
Oh, okay.
Just me and you.
Let me start my video then. Sorry, I was
Oh,
late.
there you are.
I woke
No
up.
worries.
I woke up at 9:05 and I read that you were gonna have a class, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, that sounds good. We're gonna have class, yeah. So what's your project you're working on right now?
Well,
What's your business?
as you know, I'm a photographer,
Right,
and
photographer.
this
Fantastic.
this year I started really great. I had
Right.
my own exhibition,
Right.
and I started doing, I started writing that I'm commercial and celebrity
Perfect.
photographer, and I started getting more inquiries about photography projects. Right now I'm thinking of shooting product at home, or like I have an access to the studios that are closed right now
That's right.
completely. So that's a possibility of me being myself.
What if we talk about this? You want to create an exhibit. You want to create an exhibit of whatever it is you want. Maybe it's personal that you want to have, you want to go to, what's going. Okay. So
Yeah,
take
I
a
have some
project.
personal. Yeah, I have some
Yeah.
personal projects that I did in college.
Right.
They're big prints, black and
Fantastic.
white, very beautiful. Maybe I can showcase them and maybe have them for sale. I was thinking earlier this week that if we're gonna go long for this, maybe I should go and study how to do images in 3D or do virtual reality like exhibitions or something
Okay, but
like
just
that.
for this assignment here, imagine if you will, you're putting on an exhibit. How much money do you need for that exhibit? And then what rewards would you give people that pledged you to be a part of that? That's what I'll come back to you with. I'm going to pop into another room.
Okay.
Okay, you're the only one there. Assign to.
by
Oh, I'm going to assign to.
myself.
No. Oh, that's too funny. I'm going to put somebody in there. All right, cool. Oh, I put him in the wrong room. That's okay.
That's okay. I can be by myself and my coffee.
Oh, exactly. Let's see. Not joined yet. Gabe, I think I did everybody. There's only 3 rooms. Elon, Toma.
How much money I need?
I'll bop in
for
here.
the
Yeah.
exhibit?
To hire a web designer and graphic artists,
Cool,
and
I'm in.
people can, you can source stuff from your friends, but still, I think that one actually has a story to it that you could put a Kickstarter behind.
Yeah, that's true.
So the key question is, how much money do you need? And one of the ways you do that is you're going to have to do that analysis as well. Just like he showed, there's 3% for this, 5% for that on Kickstarter, et cetera. So, and then you have to calculate what the rewards are going to be worth. So I was just talking to Toma, who wants to do a Kickstarter campaign for a personal photography project she wants. She wants to do an exhibit. So she's going to need X amount of money. And what she can do is, for the rewards is, I can give you a print of this. I can give you a small print of this. I can get 3 prints of this. I can put your name as a silver sponsor or a gold sponsor or something like that on the invitation. So those are some of the ideas that come from how can you figure out these rewards. Has anyone here been on a Kickstarter campaign?
No.
Okay. Cool. So I've been on a couple of them, and one was for Burning Man. It's really cool. Really cool what they were doing. And they showed me everything they were going to do and all that, and how much money they need. It was like $50,000. So we gave like $500, and we got a small print of, again, it was easy to duplicate, of the structure that was raised and Burning Man signed. Sweet. So now you hang that up and say, oh, tell me about this. So those are the things that you can do from a Kickstarter campaign, particularly when it's artistic. Now, I also see now that they do it for products. And one of the things they did for me in the product was that you got 2 for 1. You got the first version. You got a discount. So it was a little more limited in terms of the actual product. But there are some pretty cool things that you can come up with to give value to whatever the pledge is.
Can I ask your opinions on Patreon?
On who?
Patreon.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. I just hear so many, for the past couple of years, Patreon is a platform where artists and creators can basically have sort of like subscription-based support, where they're not really asking for one lump sum like your Kickstarter, but it's an ongoing, hey, this is what I do, this is what I put out, you know, subscribe or support me here.
Sure, you're a benefactor.
Yeah, like $5 a month or this much a month, and then maybe you get extra content to our podcast or something like that.
I haven't done that, but we have, once you buy your first piece of original art, it's over. You'll never have a print again. And one of the prints that we have, we go to an artist art gallery called Hang Art. It's emerging artists for emerging collectors in San Francisco. And one of the pieces that we have, was a pretty large piece, was the countertop that the artist and his benefactor made the deal is, I'll give you X amount of money so you don't have to worry about it, you just paint. And I think that's what it sounds like. Yeah, so I don't know anything about that. Maybe when I open it up, which I'll do shortly, you can put that out to the group and see if anybody knows that.
Sure. Okay.
Cool. I'll leave you guys on your own. I got one more group to go to. Oh, there we go.
And stuff like that, and then getting like product, packaging manufacturers.
I'm in.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the weeds, guys. So I'll just come in and say I'm in.
Okay.
Cordis is in too. You're muted. All right, so I'm gonna open this up. So in a minute, we're gonna be able to all get back together and get some ideas. Here we go. Sorry about that. So and here I am doing this and there's no sound. So what did we come up with? Let me manage you guys. No, I'm going to unmute all.
I don't think I can get one, bro.
Okay, you're all unmuted now so we can all hear you. Cool. So what kind of ideas did you come up based on the projects, et cetera? Fantastic. I'm going to mute all, and then you can unmute yourself when you want to speak. All right. So cool. Anybody had some ideas? I think Jennifer, your group, I hear you were talking about some certain things, and you also had a question about a particular platform that I was unfamiliar with.
Actually, most people in our group didn't seem to need any funding, so we didn't pursue it much more.
Fantastic.
Either individually funded or had funding, but had been asking about Patreon, which is whether or not he'd used it, since it's more like a subscription based funding for creators where their following users, customers can
I'm gonna
support
look up.
them
I'm gonna look it up right now. Patreon.
on a monthly basis. But Gabe has actually used Patreon for one of his projects in the past.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Gabe, is it
No.
Patreon? How am I spelling it wrong here?
Yeah, EON.
EON.
Many podcasts that I listen to when podcasting, branched off from traditional terrestrial radio, a lot of them switched to Patreon to get their funding initially.
Interesting. It's so wild. There's so many creative people out there that are working really hard. But this is great. I'm going to add this to my my presentation. So, Gabe, so you've been involved on it from the receiving side or the giving side?
Actually, like personally, I haven't used Patreon that much. I know what it is, and I like it.
Right.
But I don't have like an account myself. But I
Okay.
was saying that the people I'm working with on the project that we are doing right now, they've used Patreon and they're familiar with and they use it to get funding for our project.
Got it. So you figure it's pretty legit.
Yeah, I know tons of people who use it, tons of independent artists,
Nice.
podcasts, like Jennifer said, a lot of people on like Instagram who just create art freelance or do anything. I know even people like who create like custom content in like computer games. I was playing a game the other day and I saw like, oh, it was really interesting actually. It was somebody was doing this promotion when they were making these like mods in a game of all these buildings in a city in Italy that was very affected by COVID, and then they were taking the money from their Patreon that month and giving it to relief funds or something. So it was like this huge promotional thing, and it's businesses, but it's just really this guy's just sitting at home and programming mods and getting money for it though through Patreon.
Cool. So I'm going to add this to my list of websites that I need to show students in terms of here's some ideas for it. Because I love the idea of supporting artists. I mean, art's so important. And we're also thinking about having an entrepreneurship class. So entrepreneurship for the artists, because there's a number of people that we know at Santa Monica College that know a lot of artists and how they promote themselves and also how they maximize the value for a particular piece. So it's very interesting. Excellent comments. All right. So now, before we take a break here, let me make sure I've gone through everything here. Unless, let me open it up. Anybody come up with some ideas, or ideas for some rewards? Toma, you were thinking of one, and I promoted that to everybody, so I'm going to put you on the spot in terms of what. Hold on. Here we go. So, Toma, I'm going to put you on the spot in terms of what kind of ideas did you come out to use Kickstarter, if you wanted to promote your personal ideas for a photographic exhibit.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we talked with Thomas, and he gave me an idea of what if I want to make an exhibition. Personally, I have a lot of works that I did in college, and they already printed. So I do have a lot of things to show that are physical. So I didn't need any funding for the part where I needed to buy any chemicals or paper or pay for like producing the print or something.
Right.
So basically I just need a space, which I also have, and I didn't really think about like what I need to the money for, because I basically have everything. In terms, if I want to start a Kickstarter and offer like for promotion purposes, I can offer special VIP invitations for the day before, like on a special day, the VIP showcase with some entertainment, some expensive wine and snacks, and maybe something like that. Maybe some gift bags with branded stuff that I have. I have some T-shirts also with my prints on them, and iPhone cases, like they could approach some kind of like a tent or a table where, and then just pick like an iPhone,
look at
an iPhone
you.
case,
Look at
an iPhone
you.
case for their phone.
With your image, one of your images on it.
Yeah, it's very it's very cool to make selfies on this, or like shoot yourself in the mirror.
Right.
So it's very cool, and I shot this image. Again, something I can even come up with a raffle for something like on the end of the night.
Right. Yep.
Just do something like a celebration of the visual art. That's what
this gives you.
it
gives you a. So one of the things you have to do is I want to get back to the break-even analysis, but I'm going to sneeze for a second. I don't have hit my sneeze button here. Hold on.
I can't hear you for some reason.
There we go. So I was involved in a nonprofit, but you have to do the break even on it. So this nonprofit had X amount of members, and they would do an annual event where they brought all the members in, they put them in a nice museum, they spent all this money and all that. And the effort was to get more members. At the end of the day, they spent all this money, which almost equaled all of the dues they collected, and they signed up one new person. So at that point, I said, why are we doing this? So you also have to take a look at your finances on that. And if you want to break even on that, that's great. If you want to extra put money into it, that's great. But just know that you've made that decisions rather than the, oh shit, I spent $1,000 that I didn't expect. So that's the one of the aspects on this is that you're using your cash flow forecasting, you're using your Excel to start looking at these numbers as you put it together for whatever campaign you're putting together or whatever type of project that you're doing. Cool. Let's do this. Let me see how I think I got one more slide left. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. We did that. So here's a couple of things. You know what? We're going to wait on this. Let's take a 15-minute break. So I'll come back in 15 minutes, and I'll keep this up here. I'll play some music, come back in 15 minutes, and we'll go on to the rest of this this presentation, and then we're going to talk about side hustling. Cool. Let's turn on some music. Thanks, honey. Good thing we got that window, right? Cool, we're on a break.
Looking for another way to support KCRW? Look no further than your car, boat, motorcycle, or RV. Don't junk it. Donate it to KCRW to help keep the music playing here on Eclectic 24. Check out KCRW's all news channel, News 24, programming from KCRW, NPR, BBC, and more, 24 hours a day. Go to kcrw.com/news24 or listen on KCRW's app.
With nothing to wear, no one else to blame.
There's a chat. Maybe.
Stick catches the smoke, but no one sees you fly. You can't take the ground in style. Go down a leather and crocodile. Find some laundry pins and hang up a smile. Walk down another useless side.
All right, we should be here now, right? Somehow my chat got wiped out. Thank you for someone to saying yes, we are. So we have 11 people here on that. So I'm going to go back to a screen share here. We're going to finish up on the last thing. Thank you very much for, I like the idea of that break. Play a little music and do a little advertising. That was our commercial break, right? So here's our funding aspect of it. We went through that already. And prepare bricks. So we're going to talk about making more money and for your particular product. And this might not be the first thing you're thinking about, but it certainly can be the next thing. Because let's talk about Ken with the burrito truck. people may not want burritos, but they do want something in the morning, and he can begin to ask questions for his customers in terms of what do they want next, what products do they want next, etc. And one of the key things on this is price your product or service in relationship to the benefit, not the cost. So for example, if you're in the schmata business, that's Yiddish for the clothing business, typically they call it Keystone, and that means if it costs me $100 to make, I will sell it for $200. But that has nothing to do with couture. It has nothing to do with Dolce & Gabbana. They are selling it as a premium because of the value it provides. Vans is more of, they're probably pricing it more along the lines of costs, and they may use a metric that we must get 20% over cost. And that becomes their pricing strategy. Others are going, I'll price my couture here, but then when it gets to TJ Maxx, I'll bring it down, and people are getting value from that aspect of it. The point is your pricing is does not have to be related to cost. And the only way you know that, someone say, well, Tom, what do I price it at? Price it here. It's a lot easier to bring the price down than it is to bring the price up. So if you have a subscription for an idea, or a subscription is your revenue model, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to provide you more for the next one, but you have to grandfather everybody else in because people are going, I already got everything. Why are you charging me more? However, if you charge it high and no one buys it, you can start doing a discount. We'll discount it and bring it down. When it came to clothing, Banana Republic, which used to be not what the Banana Republic is, it was more safari wear. They are now at a point when that new product comes out, it'll be a week, maybe 10 days before they start marking this down to get rid of their inventory because the next one's coming back in. So the point on this has nothing to do with cost. It's all to do with value. We could talk about this. One of the things you purchased did not cost much to Starbucks. What do you think that costs, that little tiny thing, for the $5 that I pay for? So the actual cost of that material, putting aside the labor, which isn't a whole lot nowadays because it's push, it's these things that will provide a whole bunch of value for it. Now, number 2 is offer customers a limited range of prices. And it goes something like this: good, better, best. And then you can start looking at, just like Mark talked about, there are some things that he didn't sell a lot of or didn't get good margins on, but he needed. And so the good might not have made any margins. The better might have made the most margins because there wasn't that much labor or other materials involved in that. And the best could have made the same margins as good. But they needed to do that. And there's no written rule on this. It all depends on how you want to do it. Where do you want to go with this? As I talked about my ravioli company, the good we were selling a lot of, but we weren't making any money. The lobster ravioli we made a lot of money on, nobody wanted it. So those are the ways that the market's going to talk to you, and you have to be flexible in terms of as you move forward on that. But in the beginning with the pricing, look at your competitors. As Mark said, he went right a little bit snuggled up to what the Italians were selling it for because he knew that because he worked for them, but wasn't above that. And so that's one way to look at it, is to meet competition or just go out on your own and figure out this is what you want to sell it for. And then you'll figure it out. The market will tell you. And then get paid more than once for the same product. Well, for the same thing. This typically is a service. For example, a podcast, a video. So if I take this class and then cut and paste or cut and edit a version into it so I can make a 6-minute on Mark's interview and put that up on my YouTube channel, and then maybe I can make some money for it. Same thing with the gentleman who is doing the Excel. I sent that to you. He does the Excel. Now he does it once, that people are paying for the synchronous version, meaning live version, and then he puts it over here and then sells it again. So it's make once, sell many. And give that some thought, particularly when it comes from a service aspect, in terms of how you can do the same thing. Gary Vanderjack, he does his radio show. He puts it on his podcast. He puts it on his YouTube. He puts it on his Facebook. He puts it on here. He sends it out to LinkedIn. So he takes the same one. Make once, sell many. Cool. All right. What do I want to do here? I want to give you a brief, this is going to be very brief. I think you may have heard my rant on this. We're going to talk about a little bit about banks. So Mark alluded to it a little bit in terms of what's going on with banks and how they all work. Number one rule is banks are not your friends. All those commercials that you see with the Stagecoach and all that, and we're partners, no way. We are not partners. You sell me money, I pay for it. And the reason why you sell me money is you have something, maybe it's judgment, maybe it's historical information, or in the terms of this, collateral, meaning things they can take from me if I fail to pay. That's what banks are looking for. What if you fail to pay? Now, think about all the banks now that have loans out to all these major companies, airlines, travel, cruise lines, etc. They are going in the tank. And so now banks are very nervous about how they're going to get paid back. But there is one rule of thumb when it comes to bank. If you owe the bank $10 million and you can't pay, it's a you problem. If you owe the bank $100 million and you can't pay, it's the bank's problem. And that's just that concept of, is the more that you owe, the more that you see these banks are bending over backwards to make sure you do pay, because if you default, that's a big number. So asset-based loans and collateral, that's typically any first loan that you get. For example, my first loan I got for $30,000 on my business, I put $30,000 into their bank. It's my mom's money. So they had no risk whatsoever. If I didn't pay, which happened, the company went upside down. They took the $30,000 out of their bank account and paid it. So that's called asset-based, that's collateral. Asset-based loans are loans based on the assets you have. It could be inventory. So they come in, take a look at all your inventory. It's worth X amount. It's worth $100,000. I'll give you 60% of that as a loan, because they know that they now own that inventory. And if you don't pay for it, they'll take the inventory. Now, they don't want to do that, but they need to be in a position that they feel comfortable. And the last way banks make money, they bring in money and then they loan it out. But at the end of the day, the loans are so low right now, the way they make money is on fees. So as soon as my company couldn't pay, boom, all of a sudden, I'll redo that. I'll refinance you, but there's a $100,000 fee for that. And you got to pay my lawyers to write up the new agreement. And that'll be $50,000. Oh, don't pay the lawyers, just pay me, because I have to do it. It didn't take them $50,000 to redo that loan. They just search and replace. But that's where companies make their business on it. In addition, banks make their money on, I put in, my people save money. I'm going to give them 0.0001% a year. And then I'm going to invest this. I'm going to invest this in the stock market and invest it in different companies there. Not as loans, but as personal, as just investments. So I just want to let both lawyers and banks, they are not your friend. You're just doing business with them. They may have a smile and all that stuff, but they are not going out. They're not like taking a chance on the young entrepreneur. No one does that. The only ones that are going to do that are going to be your angels or your people that you know, friends and family. Cool. All right. So let me open it up here. I'll stop the share. Let me open it up. So what questions do you have so far? We've got one more thing to cover. I just want to make sure that we are okay in terms of where we are so far. You can type it out. You can chime in, etc. All right. I like where we're at. Oh, go ahead.
My questions are related to the final project. So whenever that's appropriate.
Cool. We'll do that at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do that. I just got a little bit more to cover here on Side Hustle. I left a lot for the end. And if you have any questions that you think the rest of the class will benefit from, that's great. If you want to do it one-on-one, you can hang on here or we can just do our own Zoom. I got no problems. Where am I going, right? That's funny. Come on, where am I going? We need like,
There's,
we,
there's
yeah,
no
we need,
virtual laughter here.
I know, I know.
I'll
We
give
need
you
some
a
kind of
clap.
that
There you
little
go.
clap thing. Yay. Right. When you do
Right.
that. There's no virtual. I'll just pretend.
You
Oh,
see,
there's a
but
clap. I saw a clap. That's spectacular.
see, that's a business idea right there. Now we can add to Zoom with the virtual reactions, have them more gift-based rather than just
Gotcha.
this sad
Right,
little.
right. The sadness on that. Okay, we're working
Yeah.
on it. Again, you're the first time. We've all had to go through this remote thing for the first time. I'm getting better at it, at least I think, but you'll be the judge of that because I'm going to send out a questionnaire after this talking not about where we are, but also what is it that I haven't covered that you would like to cover. So I will send that out at the end of this class so that the next class, which is our last class, I'll make sure I'll touch on all of those first to make sure they're covered. Because if you have a question, that means I haven't covered it or I haven't done a good job of it, and other students are going to have that question as well. Cool. Let's go back to zip. I'm going to share the screen. There we go. It's all good. And here's my last one that we're going to talk about is and this is chapter 9 in the book. It does a really good job at that. This is, we'll talk about that later. How do you get the word out about your project? So here's hustling, and this is in the book, and they talk about the charlatans that are more talk and less work, the martyr who don't talk at all, but they do all this work, and then there's the hustler. The hustler does the talk, but also, I don't want to say walks the walk, that's so 1960s, isn't it? It also provides that value. So you can't, you need to let people know what you're doing in a way that's not just braggadocious, but also that, is that a word? Is that also meets what, is commiserate. Commiserate is, God, I'm losing for words right now, is the same as the amount of value that you're providing. Commiserate. All right. Style without substance, flash. We know lots of these people. Substance without style, nobody knows. And you want to get right where there you have style with substance, which equals an impact. So here's what you can actually do. And this is a nice template to send out to your list. It might be Facebook, it might be Instagram, it might be any one of those Pinterest, however one of those platforms that you use, that you can send this out and let them know about the project that you're doing, meaning your business. Hi, here's my business. The goal is here's the benefit. We hope to do this and that. I haven't added you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my website and take a look at that and give me feedback on this product. I want you to go to my website and see that you can get a sample product. Let's say you send out a small sample. Let's say Nawal's doing that, sending out a small sample of her scents, and you can do that. So in this particular case here, what is that? This is a template for something that when you do your project, when you're ready to roll, which means anytime. Hope that's not somebody's stomach, man. Hold on. Wow. Hold on, Ayers. Hold on. Okay. Somebody killed it. Good job. No, they have. All right. Hold on. I'll get them right now. I'm muting you all. I can tell who it was. All right. Going back here. That was pretty funny, though, but it wasn't somebody's stomach. Okay, so the action points. This is nice and simple and easy. I'm starting this project. I want you to let them know about it. But people need to know, and they're going to know because of you, because you're important. So in this marketing plan, there's a chapter on give free, receive free, and it works. So they gave some examples. Let me see if I did the example here. So you have to be genuine about this, truly helpful without the thought of any potential payback. You have to be genuine. We talk about this in our sales class as well, is that when you're interested in a person, you have to be genuinely interested in that person with to help them, to make them better and help them get better without any expectation of anything in return. Keep doing that and it will come back in spades. That means a lot. What about saying yes to everything and seeing where it takes you? Remember Adrian? Adrian was talking about, man, she was doing dirt, I dig it. Then one thing led to another. She's hanging out with this group. She chats with the group. I can do PR. I've been writing that, boom, boom, boom. And now her business is, her profession is PR communications. Wow. Just say yes, see where it goes. One of the troubles that I have with many people, students in particular, is that when they go, well, I want to get paid for what I'm worth. Well, nobody knows. So do it for free. Let me show you something right now. I'm going to stop this share. Talk about do it for free. Do you see my background? So my background is a mural that was painted by an artist onto the side of the garage of our neighbors. They were cool with it and all that. And what you're seeing is about the third of it, because the garage is pretty long, because it also has a mother-in-law unit on the back. And here's how we found this artist, Scott Gibson, who's also from Scotland. See how that works? He was in Next Door, and he said, I'm new in town. I want to get my portfolio out. I'm a muralist. I want to increase my portfolio in here. I will do a mural for you in this urban type of view if you pay for the paint. So love of my life, Virginia, and my wife, Virginia, oh shit, how do I say that? There's not two people, it's just one person, says yes. Scott comes over, shows us his work. He did this. We paid all the paint for it ahead of time and all that. Took him 4 days. His inspiration was Berlin, because he had been in Berlin. He had been traveled around Berlin. And this idea he was looking for is the layers and layers and layers of different taggers that was going on there. One thing that was fun, my initials and my wife's initials and our house number is embedded in there somewhere 3 times. Now, he could be lying for that and make us go crazy, but I believe him. Oh, by the way, he used this for promotion and we paid him. So there's a way to get out there and provide value first. And without any, he had no expectation of getting paid. He wanted to do a portfolio. We loved it so much, we paid him. And if it wasn't for what was going on here, we would have a big, everybody come out, take a look at it. The black light looks great, etc. So there's that screen. Let's go back over here.
Ask a question on that.
Sure, you got it.
You know, like in the creative industry, there's a lot, I think, an increase in the expectation of spec work.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I have mixed feelings about this,
That's
about
tough.
working for free.
Yep.
And also, you know, valuing yourself.
Right. So in this particular case, he didn't work for free. He at least got paid his expenses. Now, what happens is when you do spec work entertainment, there's a lot of shits out there that are just using you. And that's a bad place to be. So it is a difficult one, but you know, how do you create, if you don't already have a portfolio, how do you create a portfolio that you can go to the next customer and say, look, this is what I've done?
So so then I would think the line is, if you're just very, very new and you're just starting out and you're breaking in, that would be at the point you do this. But beyond that, you wouldn't do this.
Good point. Good point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think as you begin to get up your scale of, when I started out in my business, I did everything for free for friends and all that, to be able to have stories, to be able to have a portfolio to show, and to be able to, you know, have that, be able to talk the language and tell the story so people had confidence in me. So I think that's a really good point, Jennifer. You can't always do everything, but if it's, let's say, for example, where Adrian goes into PR, she's probably not coming in here at $500 an hour, but after she's done 6 of these, then she can charge $350 an hour.
Yeah, so it's just a hard thing I'm struggling with now. Just maybe it's my age, is that I come from like the worker bee generation, where you just, you know, work harder and get paid more. And then I see a lot of young people who are very confident and, you know, value themselves very highly, who are refusing to do things outside of the scope of what they say their job title is. And then, you know, maybe I end up doing the work.
Right.
And so this is where I'm like, but I totally see And sorry, I could have a very long conversation.
Oh
on
no,
this, but
I'm totally
it's just
with you on this.
things to think about how to learn, break in, and
Yep.
show, and get that learning experience while offering to do things for free, but then also elevating yourself
Sure.
to what your worth is.
Exactly. I talked to a lawyer that I knew, and he was a senior partner. And it's 7, 8 o'clock at night, and he's looking for some help on a project. And he would go in there, and all the youngsters that had just come in said, and again, remember, this is 20 years ago, so they're not. When I'm not talking about millennials, I'm talking about 20 years ago. Hey, can you help me out on this? And they go, oh no, I got way too much work. But those people that would hang around and help him, he's the one that's calling on them to help him on the next project, because now you have experience. So at one level, there's just being there. On the other level, of course, you have to do a good job. But I can see how the frustration is when no one wants to do the extra work. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid for this. And at some point, it kind of gets to my nerves as well. But this is what we need. Well, I don't get paid for this. I'm not so sure I'm picking you for my next project. So the less projects you get, the less important or valuable you become. And
that's a good way. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Think about adding value. Yep.
Yeah.
Think about it as adding value. I like that. That's a good idea here. So let's go back here. I just want to make a point of it when we said it was 20 years ago. We're talking about that. Cool. Examples from the text. So here were the free ideas that happened. So if you read them out the text, there's the free dresses. This happens to be a woman who's in the Midwest that her specialty is making specialized or customized wedding dresses. And to get them shipped on time, to be there, the whole bit. So she did such a great job on that. What she then turned around was saying is any one of you that do not want your wedding dress, or the wedding dresses that she may have created but didn't work out, she gave these free dresses out for high school girls that were going to the prom. So she was mailing them all over the country. There's another way for her to get free publicity as well as do the right thing or do a good thing, let's put it that way. The 5-cent architect. Architects are a dime a dozen, and most people don't want to pay a lot of money for an architect, which is really wrong, particularly when you're remodeling your house. But people don't want to pay for architects. So what this gentleman did, and you'll see it in the book, he went to farmer's market, got a table, and said 5-cent architecture advice. And he sat down with these people, I'm dealing with the city. What do I have to do here? Can I put my garage there? Can I do this and that? And he was able to help them out. And with that particular service, when things got difficult, boom, it came back and they said, can you help me out? And now I'll pay you. So now he was able to show his value. And the last one is 9 Clouds. 9 Clouds is an IT firm that's in either North Dakota or South Dakota. And I think the only thing South Dakota says that's good about them is that they're not North Dakota. Come on. So South Dakota, they're an IT firm, and they wanted to keep companies in South Dakota. So they gave out not only discount, but they did some free installations. They did workshops and those things to help people learn about IT, technology, and those kind of things to keep them in the state. So those are some ways that you can show that without, there's the value that you feel good about it, and there's also the value about eventually it might come back. Eventually, I do believe in karma, and so eventually it might come back. So there's the promotional plan and that thing. Cool. Let's go on to my last one here. That was the last one, which is the side hustle idea. In terms of that, let me break you into groups just for 5 minutes. I'm going to break you into groups for 5 minutes. Let me stop the share. And break you into groups. And here's going to be the question is, help each other come up with one idea for their promotional plan. So if we get into groups, there's only 4 people to a group or less. So I'll put you into groups and then talk to each other, tell you this is what one particular project is, and bounce around and see if can I, what kind of ideas do you have for some promotion for this particular project or this particular business I'm working on. So I got to create the breakout rooms. I'm opening them all up. There's only 2 now. Go.
Right,